Hello, welcome to another episode of Cults in the Occulture, and this is Joe Simhart. Um, this video is a follow-up of sorts on my prior one, which was a loose critique of a conversation between A.J. Gentile and Tucker Carlson, and I went into a little more than that, and I got, surprisingly to me anyway, over 3,000 views and over 50 comments, some of them a little bit negative and with ad hominem content. But what I wanted to address is what I think is the major issue here, and that's what we call woo, W-O-O, or woo-woo, as some skeptics would call it. Woo, like the word cult, can have comic, negative, and positive spins. I mean, people can use it as a descriptive term, doesn't necessarily mean something negative. It can be kind of funny, people describing a woo experience and talking about it. But it's an important word because it's a cliche thought terminating in some sense if you don't follow up on what you mean by it. But it's part of human experience and probably has been since we call ourselves a human species. We have gone into a world of wondering what the meaning of all this is. Why the hell are we alive? Animals don't seem to ask that question. At least they don't have the language that we understand that asks it. So to start this off, I went to a lecture last night put on by the Santa Fe Institute here in the town at the Lensic Theater. And these are free or by donation, and they're quite high quality lectures. The lectures are packed with people interested in the science of consciousness and of complexity and a lot of things related to these big questions and how do we manage them in a more reasonable or scientific way. So the speaker, Dahlia Wheatley, she's from Dartmouth and she's part of the external faculty of the SFI. She spoke on something called the beautiful engineering of us, from neurons to collective minds. And it was well received. I enjoyed her lecture. She entertained questions afterwards, and there were some what she called Santa Fe questions, which are these, woo questions that go into things like, have you studied the quantum consciousness parts of human expression? And she kind of gently said, no, that's not where we go with our science. But the basis of her lecture was the research done on something which has largely been ignored, and it's right there in our face all the time, and it's about human conversation as the basis of what makes us human. And so I'll read a quote which summarizes it. She said, for more than a century, neuroscience has viewed intelligence as a property of individual brains. So we study the brain, the amygdala, the reptile part of the brain, parts of the brain that are imaginary, like the third eye or the pineal gland, even though there is such a thing as a gland like that, without the theosophical spin on it. But she says, brains did not evolve in isolation. Humans are an intensely social species whose minds are continuously shaped by other minds. So my whole career has been involved in terms of intervention with this problem of how some minds influence other minds. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, and sometimes it's to control other minds, other times it's to educate. So, getting back to the Y-Files, I think there's an attempt there to educate, obviously. It's entertaining mainly. And there's an effort to offer some skepticism. I just don't think it goes far enough, but that's my opinion. So getting back to this concept of woo, how do you manage that? Because we all experience it. I've had a lot of these woo experiences. I'm not going to get into them here, and some of them were quite profound, especially my younger years. So there's this interesting article I came across on nestlabs.com. It's called The Woo Spectrum by Anne-Laurie LeCunth, and it's not a long article, but it's worth reading. She goes into something called the 4 levels in the Woo spectrum. And these levels are critical, cautious, curious, convinced. That's 4. So the critical part of the Woo spectrum is that you're basically rejecting it. So you view certain practices as specious, a fun thing to do at best, but misleading and potentially dangerous at worst. You actively challenge claims about these and seek to expose what you consider pseudoscience and avoid these topics entirely as not worth engaging in. More or less, I'm probably in that first category, but also somewhat in the second. The second one is woo cautious, observing. You're skeptical but remain open to evidence. You're happy to engage in friendly conversations about these practices, although you might not be the one initiating them, but you're not ready to try them personally. So, that's less critical. The third one is woo curious, experimenting. You actively explore these practices while maintaining critical thinking. You found some benefits, but you're not fully convinced, or you think there might be some yet to be discovered scientific explanation to strange phenomena. So, people practicing mindfulness, people doing yoga, people reading books about entheogens, like psilocybin, and wondering if they have a scientific or a medical application. They might fall into this. They're experimenting. So there's a possibility and a probability that there's something there. There is there. And the last category is woo convinced, practicing. So you have people that arrange their house with crystals, maintain that they have certain energy because they program them with their mind and in the sun, that kind of thing, or believe in feng shui, for instance, maybe overvalue acupuncture. They're in that woo convinced or practicing category. So she says you've integrated these practices into your life based on personal experience and evidence you find compelling. You might even encourage and guide others through these modalities. So she says we can use this spectrum practically. It's kind of like the levels of change, the 6 levels of change that people use now when assessing whether or not you're ready for rehab or for therapy to change a bad habit like gambling, for instance. If you're pre-contemplative, they don't want to deal with you. They're wasting their time because you're not even thinking of changing. You're just convinced that your lifestyle is okay. If you're contemplating, well, there's a chance that therapy or that some other way of engagement can help you. So there's levels within the change spectrum. But this is the practical use of it and of woo. So she basically gets into self-reflection. You notice you tend to accept or reject and why. You track how your views evolve over time. This can reveal blind spots in your thinking and areas where you might benefit from more openness and skepticism. So, the Why Files offers some of that, puts up red flags, offers information that shows some of this woo stuff is false and is a false belief and no evidence to support. But there's an openness to other avenues. Then she goes into communication. Use it as a part of conversations with friends. Understanding our position on the spectrum can provide language to express where we stand and why. Instead of binary debates about whether something works or not, we can have nuanced conversations integrating varying levels of evidence and diverse experiences that might shape and reshape our views. And that's where this researcher, Thalia Wheatley, in her lecture comes in. She thinks that she shows evidence in terms of MRIs, that when brains are interacting in conversation, like engaged in story making, they become more synchronous, more friendly. And there are limits to that. And for instance, for example, during conversations with people, the science shows that when you get into a topic and make eye contact, suddenly the synchrony goes down and you have to begin the conversation again and bring it back up again. There's something about eye contact which puts a stop to getting too engaged and allowing more inner contemplation to take place and reflection and what we call communication. But it's a very important part of developing human personality. Wheatley also got into the idea of this vast application of AI and shows that it's actually harming our ability to enter into authentic human conversation and enrich our physical and psychological brains. There's a limit to what AI can help us with, and it can end up isolating us even more, which we're seeing more and more with younger people using it. Personal development. It's the last thing. She says, leverage the framework as a guide to explore unfamiliar practices with intention. This might mean you practice at least once or reading the scientific literature. You can then choose to integrate it into your life and decide it's not for you. So, in other words, it's client-centered. If you don't like it, what she's offering here on her website, just go on without it. You're either not ready for it or you're grown past it, or you're just not interested. So I'm going to put a link to this. I think it helps to get an idea that we're all on this woo spectrum, including me. And I've been up and down this spectrum in my life. I'm more in the skeptical range now because I find it's useful for my clients to apply as much rational discourse and any evidence to what they're going through. Whether it's, for instance, I've deconstructed and helped people exit from being overly attached to astrology readings. Not often, but I've done it in the past, and they found that that's helped them to understand what the mechanics of astrology are. Does it work? Doesn't it work? What's it really based on? What are the various systems of astrology? Do they relate to one another? Is Jungian astrology a thing, or is it just kind of another gimmick to get people interested in an influence communication game that astrologers play with this horoscope? All of those things come up, and so it's a matter of applying what she calls woo critical, or beginning to be woo cautious and then woo critical. You reject a system that turns out to be rather weak or fraudulent in terms of helping you understand yourself and the universe around us. So I'll leave it at that. It's a big topic, but we're all involved in this woo world. We all, as Wheatley said at the beginning of her lecture, we are a species looking for meaning, and that means that we wonder about these anomalous experiences and whether or not the universe is talking to us in some way, or is it just ourselves talking to us, or is it just the community of people coming up with something to talk about that enriches the community? All of those things are questions and not easily answered, but they're worth exploring. Thank you for listening and enjoy your day.